Welcome to Table Talk, the place for deep conversations in the Geekverse. And trust me, when we tear into a subject, we go deep. I'm Heath, and I'll be your host. Each episode, I'll be talking with one or more creators, authors, illustrators, publishers, or other movers and shakers in games, TV, books, movies, or other areas of the Geekverse. Regular guests include Douglas A. Burton, the author of Faraway Bird, a multi-award-winning historical fiction novel of the Byzantine Empress Theodora. He's also the author of The Heroine's Labyrinth, an alternative story structure to the hero's journey that often occurs in stories with feminine heroes. That structural framework frequently comes up in our analysis of story. Brianna De Silva, she's the director and co-writer of The Cultists, a Lovecraftian comedy mockumentary-style web show here on YouTube, and the author of The City of Reckoning, an epic fantasy novel of political intrigue, the ethics of war, and young love. Cameron Pasha is a screenwriter, director, novelist, and was a writer and producer on the series Kings, a producer on NBC's Bionic Woman, and a co-producer and writer for Sleeper Cell. He's also written for the CW series Nikita and Roswell, New Mexico. He's been breaking news from inside Lucasfilm, Disney, and Hollywood. His analysis and commentary have become very popular on YouTube. We regularly meet to discuss and analyze stories, and when we do, we dive into graduate-level seminars on story structure and writing. Come on in and let's go deep. And when I say we're going deep, I mean you'd better bring your hard suit. Other guests have included Lou Anders, the author of the Thrones and Bones fantasy novels Once Upon a Unicorn, the creator and publisher of the Norengard RPG, and the author of Star Wars: A Pirate's Price, the book that explains why the Millennium Falcon is on the planet Batu at Star Wars Galaxy's Edge. Mark Tassin, the creator of the World of Ataltis, head of Mechanical Muse, former director of the Gen Con Writers Symposium, and the head developer of the new Cool Name RPG. Let's see, who else?
Bond. James Bond.
Well, not James Bond. Not yet. Maybe soon, though. But I have interviewed Jamie Stegmaier, the founder of Stonemaier Games, crowdfunder extraordinaire, and publisher of many hit board games like Scythe and Wingspan. Brian Colin, sculptor of the world of Revelo Monster Busts, and the creator of the vast grim dark horror RPG. Ajit George, the Dungeons & Dragons author. We talked about game writing, education, and his contribution to Van Richter's Guide to Ravenloft and the development of the Journeys to the Radiant Citadel.
I am Hela, Odin's firstborn, the commander of the legions of Asgard, the rightful heir to the throne and the goddess of death.
Well, actually, that interview got rather spicy, so I think I'd better just keep that one to myself. Kate Wilson, a YouTuber, actress, host, and prolific geek guru who's now working to make a new show dedicated to the world of tabletop gaming a reality. So buckle up and get ready for a wild ride, because it's time to explore the worlds of tabletop gaming, sci-fi, fantasy, and all of geekdom through the eyes of those who are making things happen.
Atomic batteries to power. Turbines to speed.
Roger, ready to move out.
It's time for Table Talk. Hey everyone, good evening. Welcome to Table Talk. Welcome to my home, welcome to the office, and welcome to the show. I feel like it has been a long time since we've had a Table Talk, and that's my fault. We have been on a little bit of a hiatus because I've been working on getting things ready for the Cultist Kickstarter. And by the way, we are dual streaming here on both Table Talk, the Table Talk channel, and the Cultist channel, because this show has kind of a Lovecraftian theme. And actually, that's why I decided to go ahead and maybe we should go ahead and talk about it, is because as we're going forward to the Cultist Kickstarter here in about a week or something like that, I wanted to have, I thought the Lovecraftian elements were on my mind as we're talking about the Yellow King and all of that. And especially since in the Cultists, we referenced True Detective by replicating one of the props, and I put out a video on that on the Cultist channel. And so the topic here is kind of apropos to what's going on. And so I am joined tonight by community favorite James Bacon for this discussion.
Hello.
Hey,
Thanks for
Bacon.
having me. I'm glad to be here.
Great to have you tonight. So thank you for joining me on kind of late notice. I asked, and I was glad that you hadn't binge watched the whole thing. When you said I've watched, I couldn't actually remember if I said we'll talk about the first 3 episodes and communicated that to you, or if I had just thought I should tell him to just do the 3 episodes. I couldn't remember at the time if I had actually told that to you. You're like, all right, I watched them all. I was like, did he just watch all of them?
No, you did tell me. I will watch all of it. But you did tell me.
Because I have to be careful. I've watched this several times, and I do have to be careful when I turn it on, because I basically binge watch it when I turn it on. Like when I start watching it, and like every time I've like, oh, I kind of want to watch this, like I'll turn it on, and then 6 hours later, because it's not like it's a 30-hour show, because it's a like 9 episodes, I think. But
I think it's
so it can be watched all at once, and if I get it started, I tend to plow through it.
Well, as a first-time watcher, it's difficult not to go to the next one, and then the next one, and then the next one, I can say for sure. I haven't, because I just haven't had the time to do so. But it's been, I think you told me a night ago that I should watch it, and we'll do the first 3, and I'm already through the first 3, obviously. So it's been very good. Very good. It's one of those things that, like, a lot of people were talking about it when it was current, and I knew I should watch it, but just didn't get around to watching it. And certainly not current. I mean, this is years after the fact. I think what's it got, 4 seasons now?
Well, it's got 4 seasons, but you don't have to worry about 4 seasons, because each season is different characters. It's completely different, different stories. So when I talk about True Detective, and when a lot of people talk about it, they're just talking about season 1. It's Matthew McConaughey, Woody Harrelson, that follows these 2 characters. The season 1 is its complete arc, is their complete arc.
Yeah. And
then from what I hear, I've never watched the other seasons, that they haven't lived up to what this season is. So when I talk about the fantastic season 1 TV, or fantastic TV, and we're talking about True Detective, we're talking about season 1 with Woody Harrelson and Matthew McConaughey, which,
gotcha.
As far as I'm concerned, blew it out of the park.
Well, if I recall correctly, I think that people really loved the Matthew McConaughey character, really thought that he did an excellent job in the season. And that's proving out that's absolutely true. And I think that that's likely because whoever wrote this, right? I don't know if it was a group or if it was a singular mind that wrote this. They had,
let's look this up.
Yeah, let's look it up. But they had a very clear opinion. And I think that Matthew McConaughey really got it. I think he really understood what was happening. And I think the show's better for it, for sure.
Well, okay. I want to ask you about that. So we'll ask you, but I'll say before, this is one of the shows, and then we'll toss it to you on that. But this is one of the shows that I think is ordinarily outside of my genre.
Okay.
But I don't, because ordinarily I don't think I would have ever picked this up. I was told to watch it by David LaRocca, because he was huge into Lovecraft, and he's the one who got me into Lovecraft when I was working with Infinite Black. And he said, you got to watch this. And actually, this was after a car accident that I had. And I was just laying there recovering from a car accident. And I was like, oh, what do I need? Oh, I need to watch True Detective. And this was after I had read some of or listened to some of the Dunwich Horror and some of that. And then and it was like, okay, I was laying there anyway, like recovering from a car accident. Just like, and I think I had it on DVD at the time, and I was just like feeding DVDs into I was like, you're right, this is perfect. So it's one of those things where I always pay close attention to a story that is kind of outside my genre. Because I mean, this is not wizards, and this is not space fighters flying around. I mean, it's not any of these things.
Sure.
It reminds me kind of like Tombstone. Tombstone is not, because I ordinarily don't watch Westerns, like ordinarily, but Tombstone is like one of the greatest movies I think it is ever. And so I pay really close attention to what Tombstone is. It's like, why do I connect, and I'm drawn so closely to, or so much to this movie, even though it's, not a wizard, or whatever. And likewise with this one does this too, even though it's not what I probably ordinarily would have gone and watched. So the showrunner wrote it. I'm probably gonna mispronounce this name. Pizzolatto, Pizzolatto, and I know I've seen him in some of the behind the scenes stuff. So the showrunner
the showrunner, okay, is credited with the writing for the first 3 episodes.
Oh, okay.
And episode 4, 5, 6. Okay, so the showrunner wrote the show. Okay.
Well, I think that's pretty. I think that makes sense because of how clear the visuals are, how clear the vision of the show is. And again, this is only the first 3 episodes that I've seen. So it's, if you want me to get into it, I don't.
Okay, so let's get into it then. So what? So you said that was one of the first things you said to me is that the writer has a very strong opinion. So I mean, I guess I hadn't thought about that, but I can think. What do you go with that? Where do you go with that?
Well, I think that okay, so we'll start with the characters. Cole, Matthew McConaughey's character, and Marty is Woody Harrelson's character. Or Russ, I guess they call McConaughey, and it kind of interchangeable between Russ and Cole. But he is, when they first introduced these characters, right? Cole is unlikable. Marty is likable. Marty's kind of down to earth, everyman. Cole is abrasive and abrupt. And I mean, even when they're interviewing Marty, because that's how the characters sort of are unpacked. They're unpacked via this future time interview that they're having with other law enforcement. So they're sitting down, they're being interviewed about their relationship and the case that the case that is unfolding over the course of the series. And Marty says, what does he say? He's not one for talking unless you want him to shut up or something like that.
Oh, right. Yeah.
And it's like,
I love that line. Yeah.
It's a great line.
Really talks very much. I mean, unless you want him to shut up. Right. Yeah.
And it's a great line. And it's sort of, that's how the characters are introduced. And then over the course of the 3 episodes, what you come to find is that the show is really the juxtaposition of the truth versus lies, right? So it's, and Marty represents the lie, and Cole represents the truth. And Cole represents an abrasive truth. It's an unwavering truth. It's an unhappy, dissatisfying, just reckless truth. And Marty is the careful lie, right? Yeah. Marty, the lie that facilitates society, the lie that keeps things moving, the lie that while everyone sort of knows isn't true, they require it for their daily lives. They require it for society to be successful. That's why all of the, we only ever see 2 churches in the first 3 episodes, and they're both hollow. One's been burnt to the ground, and the other one is a tent. So the one that's been burnt to the ground has been completely destroyed, and the other one, which is a tent, just picks up and moves. So there's no stability there. There's no actual building. It's just kind of flowy, on the air, ephemeral sort of lie that the writers are trying to communicate. And then there's the lie, the individual specific lies that Marty represents in the context of his family and in the context of the affair that he's having and in the context of all of these things that he discusses with Cole that Cole just completely refutes. He completely denies, and he's very confrontational about it, right? Like the very next day, he confronts Marty about his affair in a very crude, abrasive way, but it's very like matter of fact, in your face, and if you don't like it, I'll break your hands.
This was the locker room scene. Yeah,
in the locker room scene, and it's very, but Cole sort of has this he has this shade following him around, because though he's sort of a representation of the truth, it is a truth that it's threatened by a lie, right? So the lie that's threatening Cole is going to be the lie of a happy family, because his wife left him because their daughter was unfortunately killed by an accident. They lived around a bend and a car came around the bend and, not paying attention, not, lose control and killed their daughter. I think she was like playing in the driveway was the story. And so that marriage ended because it couldn't survive their child dying. And that specter that follows Cole around is this idealized family. So he has this idea of what family should be, and he's kind of convinced himself that he's gotten past it until he encounters Marty's family.
Well, yeah, he's gotten past it by being this guy who the philosophical realist, as he says, that is not great at party. Right. Yes. That's how he what is confront that aspect of the world.
Yes. And so I think that's a very clear opinion that the writer / showrunner has. But I also think that there's a bit of temperance there, which we haven't quite found yet, but I think that we're moving in certain directions. Also, and the reason that I think we're moving in certain directions is specifically because of the Lovecraftian element. Now, at this point in the story, we've only had it mentioned, right? There was a diary that was opened up. There's some passages about the King in Yellow walking through the forest. There was a mention of Carcosa, but that's it. That's the only. It was like kind of like you show your hand real quick and then you tuck it back away.
Yeah, we hadn't seen tentacles waving or anything like
that. Yeah, right. So we've not quite entered into that Lovecraftian element, but Cole is the one who is recognizing this as truth, and Marty is the one who's sort of not interested in the facts surrounding the case. Like when Cole first brings up how it's ritualized, how he constantly indicates things that Marty flatly denies for some reason, but then later on we'll come back around and it'll end up, I got to give that one to you, you were right, or I got to give that one to you, you were right. And so it's
as arrogant as he was, he was right. Yeah.
Yes, and it's very it's a very interesting take, because the one who represents truth is the one who's bought in to this myth, right? Or this we'll say a barely established myth, because I mean there is clearly something to this murder supernatural, whether it is the belief of the killer or whether it's an actual supernatural entity. I'm sure we'll come to at the end. But so the one who represents truth is bought in on the method of this killing and the ritual, the symbols. He's brought up myth at least twice, I think it's been. I like that actual word he used twice in the dialogue so far in the first 3 episodes. And the one who represents lie is denying it. And it's a very interesting juxtaposition. I think eventually we're going to get to a point where we recognize that it's man, right? This is an evil inherent to man, and they create these lies to offload evil or to offload. And he even sort of addresses that when they first go to the tented church. He talks about offloading the aspects of themselves that they don't like to a creator or to an ultimate evil or that sort of thing. And so I think that that's sort of the direction that we're headed in with season 1. Now, I don't know for sure, again, because I've only watched the first 3 episodes. But I'm very interested to see where this goes, because it's a police procedural. It's also a character study, and I expect there's going to be some measure of twist taking place, either in the audience's understanding or in the character's behavior. So I'm very interested to get there. But I think there's a clear opinion that the writer has, and I think that it's being expressed very effectively. Like, we get the burnout church juxtaposed in the middle of a swamp, and then there's like industry, like not over the horizon, but like on the horizon, there's a bunch of industry. And so There's that juxtaposition of what is real versus what is fake, quote unquote. And what is fake, it's barren and it's sodden and no one lives there and no one goes there. And there's there's the expectation of, hey, this is a church, right? But then also there's this painting of how we saw the murder victim in the church, which is, symbolism like indwelt evil, indwelt myth. It's putting those two things together. It's putting the Christian faith and church together with this other fictitious, ostensibly fictitious, because I don't know which direction the show is going to take it. I don't know if it's actually going to be Lovecraft monsters or if it's just going to be some guy who's committing murders in the style of some sort of Lovecraft. But like, it's a very clear. It's not even like, it's not subtle, but it's not ham-fisted. So it's just as a very clear pairing of those two elements.
I was going to say that that as far as the thread that it's leading you down this whole show as it goes, it reminds me of Eyes Wide Shut.
And I've never seen Eyes Wide Shut.
Oh, you've never seen Eyes Wide Shut?
No,
oh my God.
I probably should.
Eyes Wide Shut is they're similar in the sense that they give you just enough. Like at all times, you have just enough to kind of follow through what's going on without, just blurting anything out at you, but also never losing you. And that's a very artful thing to do. We're going to continue to kind of, and actually kind of mesmerizes you. I would say that the style, as far as I'm watching the show, is often kind of like mesmerized. I guess that's why I keep watching. Like, okay, let's go, because you're just being drawn by this thread through all of this. You're following it, but you don't completely understand everything. Okay, so the two guys, I was gonna say, so when you're introduced to the two guys, you said, hey, you've got this likable Marty at first, because you don't really understand that Marty is messed up until episode 2.
Yes,
I mean you realize there's something wrong with Russ.
Yes.
Okay, I mean because
he's honest, right? Russ is honest, and so we see that immediately. We see that he's messed up.
He's honest. Yeah, but it's and I really think it's interesting that you picked up on the honesty of this, because he says things that you're not supposed to say, that are weird, that are whatever. Like, this guy seems like he's got some problems.
Yep.
And in the beginning, Marty doesn't seem that way. Like, Marty is this guy, but then by the time you get to episode 2 and you start to see Marty's side, you realize that both of these guys have major problems.
Yes.
Now, because I had picked up, you said lie with Marty, and that's true. But Marty, I was going to associate the word hypocrisy.
Oh, yes.
With Marty.
Yes. And it's the hypocrisy of the lie, right?
Yeah,
that's really what it is.
Yes. But because Russ is not that. Russ is not a hypocrite. Both of these guys are not okay.
No, but we get the hypocrisy of Marty. Sorry to just jump in on you.
No, good.
But we get the hypocrisy of Marty at that tented church, chastising Russ for his criticism of what's going on in the church. And, ostensibly, he's at least, like, Russ is at least being honest about it. He does not believe in it. He thinks that they're all low IQ individuals. They're not going to be splitting the atom, is what he says.
Right.
Meanwhile, Marty, who purportedly believes, right? He believes, or at least he's always hand waving and indicating, all these people believe in Christianity. All these people have religion in this area. Like, he's at least indicating that there's a broader band of individuals who believe in it, but then also is completely hypocritical in his belief, if he is a believer, but in chastising Cole for not buying in, because Cole is at least honest with not buying in. Marty clearly hasn't bought in due to his behavior, but he wants to perpetuate the lie that he has.
Yeah, that conversation, that it basically leads off kind of episode 3, and I called that one out because that one is such a direct conversation. I want to talk more about I have some other notes about the style of
dialogue
okay. We have.
Now,
but
I'll
that
shut
one
up
is
and not
interesting
jump
because, well, that dialogue at the tent church, the revival, is very direct between Russ and Cole.
Yes.
That they are having, and what you're juxtaposing in that case is the conversation they're having versus the environment that they're having it in.
Yes.
They're having this kind of, while the preacher is, the old school kind of religion, as Marty calls it. I was gonna say, okay, I mean, there's several things. I think this show is excellently cast. I mean, both. You put the right cast members in this. I can't see anybody else but Woody Harrelson and then Matthew McConaughey as these characters. But then also all of these all the characters that are around them are also cast very well, from how they act and also how they look. The way that these characters look on screen, I think, is also very important and comes to be very important. And also casting it right to put these actors in this place with this dialogue, but then also the setting. Can you see this taking place in something other than the Louisiana Bayou? The Louisiana Bayou is the perfect setting for this show.
Yes, I agree.
And that does recall Lovecraft, when that's Cthulhu rather than the Yellow King, but there's the Lovecraftian connection of the bayou that is here.
Oh, yes.
As well.
Yes.
Hey, BGD, welcome.
Hey,
welcome.
BGD.
Great to see you.
Thanks for swinging by.
So yeah, I mean, like, where would you say, like, if we told the story anywhere else, it wouldn't be nearly as effective. And I think that's an important thing to think about from a storyteller. You don't tell the story in Alaska. I mean, ostensibly you could, but don't do that. Something about when you've got those twisted sticks and things like that. I mean, you have such an overlay of cultures in Louisiana.
I agree.
That they are drawing from the Christian culture. You've got cultures of, voodoo that are out there already. You've got the overlay of, you've got the, urban areas, but then you also have don't go out into the bayou because that's, the crocodile, the alligators, the crocodiles, whichever one they have, I forget. But, there's danger out there. The location is also a big thing. Characterization. So you mentioned this is a character study, and I think this is, I think that's one of the reasons why this does call to me, because the characterization is so important. I mean, it is, I think, more than anything, because it's not like, there going to be some gun battles or whatever, but this is not going to be something that is, which has already been alluded to in the first 3 episodes. But it's not like this is an action-oriented show. And yeah, okay, you said police procedural, and yeah, there's element too, but you're really studying these characters through all of this.
Yeah, because it seems like it's about truth versus the lie, right? That's what it's about, and I think the character studies are essential to that. At least, again, within the first 3 episodes, it's hard to call a theme before you watch a whole thing.
Right. And this is so fantastic in having that you've only been through it the first time. So that's great. But so I think this show, and you credit the writer in this, when we're talking about the dialogue, has absolutely fantastic dialogue. Some of the best dialogue that I have seen or heard, I guess I actually heard the dialogue in a long time. And it's because I think this is a complete lesson in subtextual dialogue. Something that is not present in so many other shows. Like, if there's one thing that I would want to take out of this, I mean, there are many different lessons that you could take out of this, but I suppose if there's one core lesson that I'd want to take out of this show as a creator and a writer, is that this is masterful subtextual dialogue. There are whole scenes where people will be talking about something, but never actually talk about that thing.
Yes. They're actually talking about something else.
They're talking about something else. Everything that they physically say is something, and yet whether it's, their body language, their intonation, when they bring something up or they introduce a non sequitur, in what would be the physical line of the conversation, except for it does have that it perfectly aligns with what's actually trying to be said, I think is masterful. And I've got some examples of that I can bring up.
Yeah, please do.
Well,
I can tell you my favorite line in the entire series so far, and it's going to be very difficult to top, even though it has 6 more episodes. And it's because while I was watching what was happening around them, they pulled the idea straight out of my head and put it into Matthew McConaughey's mouth. So the first time we see them exit the FBI facility and go to their car, it's in an old rundown shopping center that's completely boarded up. The pavement is cracked and there's grass and weeds coming through the cement. And Matthew McConaughey says something like, "What is it with this place? It looks like an empty town that someone's misremembering." Something along those lines. I'm not that's not verbatim, but it's something like that.
Faded memory of a town.
Yes. Right, yes. Yeah. And when he first said that, as they were walking to their car, I was thinking to myself just how, I have the experience of living away from my hometown for decades and then going back to visit and having things completely changed. Sometimes it's a rundown area. Sometimes it's just things aren't where you remember that they were, right? You're taking all the same roads. You remember exactly how to get to the places that you recall from your youth, but they're not there anymore. And so those sorts of scenes in particular have a very strong impact on me, and I tend to key in on them pretty intensely. And that's what happened here. So he walks out and it's barren, and I'm like, oh my God, this is it is that experience. It is the experience of returning home and having nothing be the same because it's either vacant or things have come up around it, or it's just been abandoned. People have moved on. And then he said that line, and I was like, he pulled it directly out of my head. So that's going to be a tough one to top, but it's also dripping with subtext. And so I'll let you continue and get to the lines that you want. But I just wanted to put that out there because it was absolutely, at least at this point, my favorite line.
Yeah, I didn't necessarily have specific lines. I had scenes listed.
Okay, well, even better.
They were specifically in episode 3 because I mean there are some great scenes in a lot of this, but episode 3 has that. Okay, you first have what we just talked about, the very direct conversation where the conversation is direct between Russ and Marty, but you're contrasting with the fact that you're in the church revival. Okay. Yes. But then you have the conversation with them between Russ and Marty when they're having lunch. And they also talk about he is talking about, what the difference is between, and one difference between me and you is, and Russ says denial. And I always laugh at that scene. You know what the problem is? Denial, and so they have that conversation. And even the scene that Marty is sitting there drinking a beer, and he even calls out, and what's going on, that he calls out, I like to keep things even. Like how I can sit here, have one beer and not have to have 20. And he's calling that out, the hypocrisy. He's calling that out as a character virtue of his, when actually, the reason is he's a drunk and he can't even have lunch without having a beer. And yet he's trying to couch this as a virtue of his, that he can sit there and enjoy this beer.
And that's a highlight of his hypocrisy because previously in previous episodes, Russ has shown up to his house drunk, but then there was also the conversation about how he usually doesn't drink because he knows he's an alcoholic. And when he is drunk, he admits to it. Yes, I am an alcoholic. Yes, I had too much to drink. I was there and I couldn't find a way out, and so I drank. Meanwhile, we have Marty over on this side saying, "Oh, I only have the one beer at lunchtime." And it's like, yeah, but it's still the middle of the day and you're still having the beer. And so it's a very it's a very tonal call out. And I think that it's a brilliant. It was, as you say, it was very subtextual and very, very good writing.
And then you go from there to one of my favorite scenes ever, actually. Is when Russ is over at Marty's house, after having cut the grass, having returned the lawnmower.
Yes.
This scene is masterfully written.
Yes.
Because you understand on the surface level exactly what's that. Okay, so he had to borrow the lawnmower for some reason. I mean, whatever. You borrowed your friend's lawnmower, had to cut the grass. You borrowed the lawnmower. You came back over to the house, and you notice that their grass needs cutting because you've had the lawnmower, right? And so as a thank you for letting you borrow the lawnmower, what do? You cut the grass.
Yes.
And then what do you do? Okay, well, thank you for cutting the grass. Here's a drink, like it's lemonade or tea or whatever it was. They say, here you go to cool off. Thank you for cutting the grass. On the surface level, that is completely understandable and reasonable in every way.
Completely innocuous. Yeah. And it's a normal thing that happens.
Right. As a complete normal thing and a nice thing that is going on as well.
Yes.
But when the visuals, first of all, contrasting the visual of what's going on in that house when they are having the conversation, you get the sexual tension between Russ and what is the wife's name? I forget the wife's
Maggie,
name.
I think.
Maggie, yes. You immediately get the sexual tension between Russ and Maggie.
Yes.
And also that Russ is there in the tank top. So I mean,
he's shirtless. I mean, not bare chested, but he's right. In the tank top.
But he's stripped down, in this, and they are having a reasonable conversation. Well, after you already have the sexual tension with them at dinner, when they was invited over for dinner, and Maggie starts to kind of get into his head, and you realize there's something between them but then that carries over here, and you see them in a domestic environment with the kids watching TV in a way that you never see Marty.
No, and that's even evidenced by the fact that he was cutting their grass, because long grass is a visual indicator of neglect. And so Marty's been neglecting his home, and Cole comes in and he provides at least one thing that the home is in need of, which is yard work.
The grass, the long grass is the symbol of neglect, right? Mm-hmm. Yes. And it's that Russ is actually doing domestic work around the house, that he's actually come in and done some domestic work, and they're having a conversation about setting him up. And maybe you could set me up with one of the nurses, and you get the idea. I mean, what's going on is that Maggie is living vicariously through these women that she's setting him up with.
Right.
Okay, I can't date you, but I can get you with one of my friends.
Yes. Right. I think you'd be good together. Yeah.
I think you'd be good together.
Which comes later, but it's that same train of thought.
Yes, right. That's what's going on. Marty walks in, and there is irony here. Hey, Keith, good to see you.
Hey, Keith.
The irony is that even though, nothing has actually gone on between these two, Marty's instinct is right, but for completely the wrong reason. Marty accuses Russ of, like, what are you doing over here at my house? Why are you cutting my grass? What is all that?
I like to mow my own grass.
Which is
not true. He doesn't.
Don't you ever come? Yeah. Don't you ever? What are you doing over here at my house? Like, and Russ is like, what do you think I would be doing over here? It's because it would be what Marty would actually have been doing if it were him.
Yes.
So this is complete projection. Marty comes in. This is never said directly, but what's going on is complete projection on Marty's part. Everything that Marty would be doing and he is throwing, because anytime, and this is consistent throughout this, anytime Marty is challenged or like has something come up that's like, that somebody else could be accused. He's the definition of I accuse everybody else of what I'm doing. Like, if I'm accusing you of something, it's because I'm doing it. Why does he all of a sudden come in and he starts to subtextually accuse Russ of having an affair with his wife? He doesn't say that. Like, the far, far worse writing would be if he'd come in and say, like, what are you doing here with my wife? You know,
exactly.
Like he never says anything like this. It's all a conversation about the grass and how, and that's fantastic writing. That's fantastic. It maintains a conversation about the grass, but you know that what he's accusing Russ of, and that the reason he's accusing Russ of that is because that's what he's doing.
Yes. Yes.
That whole sequence is amazing. And it has that underlaying element of irony in that, yes, there is some sexual tension between Russ and his wife, but the irony is that Marty didn't even pick up on that. You know, I don't think that's why Marty is upset. It's the much more surface level with Marty that, wait a minute, this guy's over here, and what would I be doing if I were in this situation? I don't even think, because I don't think he even noticed at the dinner, which also happens throughout this, that the audience picks up on things the characters do not. The audience picks up on, okay, the sexual interest between Maggie and Russ at the initial dinner. But Marty does not. Marty does not pick up on that, and he doesn't.
No, because he's focused on he's focused on the call, right? He's focused on, hey, why didn't you leave when I said that this guy called? So he's focused on that, and so he's kind of blocking everything else out. It's also kind of an indication of how he ignores Maggie, right? Like, the sexual tension, it doesn't matter because he's blocked her out almost completely.
He's not paying attention to what's actually okay. He's not paying attention. This comes up a lot.
Yeah,
that he is not paying attention. And again, ironically, he calls that out to. And has this scene happened in the first 3 episodes? I'm not sure. You have to tell me. There's one part where he is in the camera talking to the other cops, and he talks about how. Everything that he needed was right in front of him with his family. Has that happened yet?
I don't think so. No, not that I recall.
Okay. Maybe, but so he does even bring that up. That'll be in the future. We'll talk about that. But he even brings that up. That that everything I actually needed was right in front of me. So he becomes self-aware of that in later years. Because he is not like in those scenes. He is not self-aware even of his wife's potential interest in somebody else. And that continues. Okay, then the next scene, or it might not exactly be the next scene, but the next major scene is when he's confronting his daughter about the sexual drawings.
Yes.
Okay, so they both do this together in the living room.
Yes, they do it together in the living room. And just the subtle gesture, and you don't really know what's coming, right? Like you don't know what's about to happen.
You don't know what is going on, right? Yes.
Yeah, and so she non-verbally communicates to him that it's time, and he non-verbally communicates to her, but the game's on. Like that's what you're concerned with. The game is on, and you have this conversation to have.
Right. This is a very major conversation, but okay. Hold on. So they have that. And at time, you don't know exactly what the daughter has drawn. You don't see that until the immediate next scene when he's looking through the diary. But you have seen, and was this in 1 or 2? It may have been, oh my God. Or have we seen that yet? I'm not sure if we, if we haven't seen it, you tell me. Have you seen when they set up the dolls in the orgy?
Yes, the young daughters.
Yeah.
And Marty kind of and Marty kind of like he looks back and lingers on it for a little bit.
He looks at the lingers on, but doesn't really register beyond that. So this is the second time that we've had a sexual kind of thing with the daughters.
Yes.
And the first time Marty kind of ignores it. And this has, and this is something that's never, as we go forward, it's never completely, there's a lot of things that are never like tied up neatly in this story. Sure. But this is one of the ideas that Marty is not paying attention, that his daughter is being sexually abused.
And it's like potentially. And when he's flipping through those pictures, it's the expectation for me in the moment, the expectation was, ha ha, I snuck a peek at mommy and daddy. But that can't have been it, right? Because of all the neglect that's going on between Marty and Maggie. But when you look at the images that he's flipping through, the man has a beard. In every single one of the images, the man has a beard, at least that I keyed into. And so that kind of sets your mind in a different direction. Like, well, she's clearly learned this through some sort of observation. This guy has a beard. So what is going on? It's almost like an upheaval, right? Like there's some other thing that's going on that the audience hasn't quite yet been told about directly, but indirectly, this is an indicator of sort of what's to come.
Yes. And it's what's right under your nose. I mean, Marty is all these investigations that are out there and whatever. And what I think has happened in this story and is being set up even in these first 3 episodes is that the Yellow King is sexually abusing his daughter, and he doesn't even figure that out.
Right.
But yeah, like I said, it's never said. That's never said. That's the scene. That goes from the scene in the living room with the daughter to another fantastic subtextual dialogue scene with Marty and Maggie in the bedroom. When it opens with him looking through, and then
right, you are up, yeah.
So then exactly, but there is a lot of stuff that is said there that is not said directly. What are they trying to get at? Maggie is trying to get at his infidelity, and at one point she does say, after he's talking about all this weird stuff, and she's like, "What have you been up to?" Tell me, what this is, and even they have a dialogue, and then at one point, which would be as a non sequitur in the physical realm, she goes, "I'm close, Marty. I'm close."
Yep.
They're having a conversation about something else that they're, than what they're having a conversation. It's a serious subject about the daughter that starts off with, but then it ends up with what is Marty's problem, and what,
and a lot of that scene, because of what we know, is deflection, right? And Marty could be in the moment being very genuine about having to deal with all of these cases and the things that he has to deal with and the things that he's seen, but like it's almost like self-delusion, because that's not what she's talking about. She's not actually talking about what your problem is. She's talking about what is the problem with you and me.
Right. Yes. Because he does say
he never gets there because he's unconcerned with her, because he's just talking about what's wrong with him, and it's not about
and
what's
on
wrong
the surface level. Sure, he does see a lot of horrible things. Like this is not any like. What do you think about the message here about when you're talking about the opinion of the writer? The message about police and authority. I mean, it's not like the police are good people. Like when we see these characters, Marty and Russ are not people who you really want to be police officers.
No, they're not. And I also think that we have an indication earlier in, I think it was maybe episode 2. Maybe it was the end of episode 1. I don't quite recall. But as Russ is being interviewed, he says, if we caught the guy, how could it have happened again? Without them showing him any pictures, without them indicating that it's happened again. He's like, well, if we caught the guy, how could it have happened again? And so
that was the end of episode 1.
Okay, so at the end of episode 1, right, and then he says, "Well, start asking me the right effing questions."
Right.
That is an indication of the lie, right? One of the lies that makes society work is frequently, whether or not you hold this opinion is immaterial. This is the statement of the show, as I've interpreted it, is that, one of the lies that keeps society moving is, yeah, we got the guy, you can feel safe again. Whether or not you're actually safe, whether or not they actually got the guy, right? And so I think that is it's now sort of carrying through to what we're actually seeing.
I also think that I think another message, which I think is important to think about, is that, yes, on the surface, what I just said was like, okay, these are not two people you want to have as police officers. Neither one of these, like when you're thinking about, okay, police officers and everything that okay, these, although at one point, Russ says something like being right for the job. And he's like, actually, me being how I am is what made me right for this job. But to me, it makes you reflect on, okay, being that you're going to see all these horrible things, as they're not FBI, they're the state murder police.
Right.
Right. Yeah. That, okay, who would voluntarily, what kind of, it makes you ask the question, what type of stable, well-adjusted person would take this job?
Yeah.
Anyway. And so can you really expect someone who does this to be stable and well-adjusted? And then it also makes you ask the question that, could a stable and well-adjusted person even do it? Like the kinds of things that they're going to have to do throughout the show and things they do at this show in order to catch a bad guy, in order to catch a sexual predator and whatever, is not something that a stable and well-adjusted person would just go and decide to do anyway.
Completely agree. That's
a big question.
Yes. I actually knew, I'll say, when I was growing up, when I was in high school, a friend of mine's father who was on a special victims unit, and the family slowly fell apart because he couldn't handle it. He was seeing therapy. The therapy was doing nothing because of what he'd been exposed to. And he was also one to sort of try and seek comfort in belief in religion. He was a Christian. And so it was a very, it was a very slow deterioration, but it definitely happened. And it's because, right, these things will turn you into just a complete mess, right? Which they do, ostensibly they do to Cole, because there he is drinking at noon on his day off. They brought him in to have an interview with him, and he's just not, I'm going to smoke in here. You're going to have to run out and do a beer run for me because it's my day off, and I start drinking at noon on my day off. I live behind a bar. I work, and this is what I do. I drink at noon on my day off. And so,
and there's a victory in that, knowing that's who I am. That's his honesty again comes up.
Yes, it's honesty and it's victory. Meanwhile, that's juxtaposed against Marty, who's still in the suit. He's still at it, or so it seems he's still at it. I don't know if he is or not, right? But the interview is taking place in a different place. So it looks like it's a different office. We can see there's, every time Marty's in the camera, we can see there's movement going on out there, and people are at their computers or they're walking in the office. So it communicates to me that he's being visited by instead of being brought in for questioning. And so he's kind of like still at it. He's still just completely lying to himself. And I think that's the visual storytelling, the subtext it's very, very well done. It's I would say probably masterful.
We go on when I was thinking the date at the country bar.
Oh yeah,
which is another fantastic scene. Again, episode 3 continues to bring it. Subtextual conversation, them at the bar. I mean, then at the table, everything that is being said that is not being said when something else is actually physically, being said at the table.
Yes.
The look of the actresses is so important. The being that they have pale skin and dark hair.
Mm-hmm.
That's what Maggie has. Maggie has, pale skin, dark hair. That's what Marty is interested in. Obviously, he married her, so that's his type, and that's what the stenographer, played by Daddario, right? Yeah, I mean, she's pale skin, dark hair, so she is that type of woman, and then also that's the kind of woman that Maggie brings for Russ. She is also sitting around pale skin and dark hair, which is another indication to me that she's Maggie's stand-in. When I was talking about that, I'm going to live vicariously through you. She even brings brings a woman who looks like herself.
Her. Yeah.
To date Russ. So they're all into the exact same, this particular physical type of woman.
Yeah, and this is not something that I picked up on. So this is an excellent observation. Hey, Charlie, what's up? Yeah, this isn't something I picked up on. So this is really good.
So yeah, the country bar, and that's going to lead to another one of it's going to lead to, I believe, in episode 4 to one of my favorite lines. But you have the country bar. Everything implodes with Marty. Well, I mean, you like I said, you have some fantastic subtextual dialogue there. Then you end up with Marty confronting the girlfriend there, and then he goes to her house.
Yes,
or her apartment building, in this just insane scene, which is one of those, again, it's like, this is a police officer?
Yeah.
And he even says, I'm going to call the police. And he goes, well, let me show you. Well, just see how that goes.
Yeah.
Which is such a statement on society that, like, yes. I am the police. Russ has even said something like that when he was talking to the woman to get pills from. Because he's not okay. He's only living through, being able to get through the day through the illicit, whatever kind of Quaaludes or whatever they were. I forget exactly what they were. Yeah. But then, so which side of the law is he on? He makes it explicit that I'm only trying. I'm a murder police. I'm not going to bust people for hooking or for drugs or something like that. That's not my deal, because I'm even on your side when it comes to that. And then Marty, it's. Because Russ says, I am dangerous because I can do things to people with impunity. I have the badge, so I can do terrible things to people. And you're seeing that with Marty. He comes in and he knows nobody's going to be able to touch him because he has a badge.
Yeah. And that's real. Again, that's that honesty versus the lie, right? So Cole knows, maybe I should call him Russ so that we're being consistent. Sorry. So Russ knows that he's capable of these things because he has a badge, because that's the honest truth of his situation. And Marty is just, he's actually executing on that, but without an admission, right? So the honest thing to do is so Russ is admitting it, but not acting on it. Marty's not admitting it, but acting on it.
Yes. Then Maggie calls Russ.
Yeah.
And, because why isn't Marty at home? She says that I got called by, he said that another one of the detectives said he needs some help. So that's why Marty isn't at home. Okay. He went over to F up
this guy
stenographer's date. Right. So but then she calls and Marty is at home and she wants to know, like, oh, you didn't go into the, because she wants the details because she's living vicariously through her. You didn't come in.
Yes.
And I love the line. Like, she says, you never give things chances. Guys like you never give things chances. And I love the line when he says, that's because we know what we want.
That's because we know what we want.
And we're okay with being alone if we don't have it. Like, and that means her, it's talking about her, and so again, that dialogue is just so amazing that they have on that. I love that phone call. This is one of the reasons why episode 3 is one of my favorite episodes, because it has all of these scenes in it.
Yeah. It was a jam-packed episode for sure.
Yes. We know what we want. That one of the characters I want to okay. So actually another line of thought here is that this is a show that also manages to weave in deep conspiracy.
Okay.
That especially as you go forward, and if you watch it again as well, you're unclear about what is going on. Now, that was what I was talking about with it. It weaves you through well enough that you're always drawn along.
Gotcha.
But especially as you watch it again, you're going to start to notice things that sometimes the characters pick up on, and sometimes they don't, and the audience is left to pick up on them. In this sense, it reminds me of the movie Ex Machina. Have you seen Ex Machina?
I don't recall having seen Ex Machina.
That's the one. That's the one where the billionaire guy pulls the guy in to do a Turing test of this AI woman that he's built, and there's this robot woman there, and they're in his bunker. Oh, Ex Machina is also one of my favorite movies.
I don't think I've seen that. What's the one that I saw? Oh, I saw Upgrade. No, yeah, I haven't seen Ex Machina.
Oh, well, okay.
There's recently a movie that I watched with Sable to do a discussion of on the channel, and I'm like thinking that it's yes, there's a billionaire, yes, there's a lady, but it was, I don't think it's Ex Machina. It's
Upgrade. Yeah, okay. No, I think you would remember there. So that's twice I've made an allusion to another movie that is not. And
that's okay. I need to get watching.
Ordinarily, I'm the one who hasn't watched things, but in that movie, I do really, really love that movie. It's an A24 film.
Oh, I love A24.
Yeah. Okay, so Ex Machina, we got to talk about. But in that movie, anyway, the main character is taken to a very secluded and isolated situation, and he's told a bunch of things that could be true. Mm-hmm. On the other hand, they could not be true. So you never, you just know you're just here in this isolated situation, and you're told these things, and then you have no way of verifying them. In some ways, that element of the conspiracy that is going on here weaves its way through this as well. So you as the audience never really know what's real. Sometimes I think you come to question what's real when the characters don't. Sometimes the characters will question what's real much later, because you're telling this out of chronological order, that what was real and what was not. Sometimes the audience is just in the dark as the characters. But sometimes you put things together that might not be obvious to the characters. Now, one character that I want you to keep your eye on, James Bacon, is the police chief.
Okay.
So the police chief, what is the role the police chief plays? Because the police chief is a really weak character.
Yes, he's constantly being bulldozed, whether it's by Russ and Marty themselves by saying, I know you took us off this case, but no, we're going to stay on it, or whether it's by a political, overforce, or whether it's the task force that comes in and wants to take control of the case. He never gets his own way, at least in the first 3 episodes.
Right. So yes, so that exactly. So he either gets bulldozed, or when it comes time for him to make a critical decision, he actually will cede his own authority. Like when he's having the conversation with Marty about Russ, like what do you think about him? Would you keep him on the case? And yes, Marty's like, right. Well, whatever. Yeah, I think I would. And the police chief's like, okay, well then he accepts Marty's answer. And there's several times that, like, instead of making an authoritative call himself, he'll defer to somebody else. So what do you think about this? What do you want to do? What would you do about this? And then they say something He's like, oh, okay. All right. Well, then do that. So he's, a weak character in the sense of his personal agency, not in terms of the story. He's playing a very deliberate role in the story and then he's even out drinking with them when Marty is telling his story about having pulled the woman over for speeding or whatever it is.
And yes.
Like he's even out there drinking with them. So he's got he's a very weak character as far as his personal agency in the story. We're going to see what happens going forward. We'll talk about that as we go forward. But then also, you have that. Okay, all of a sudden this task force shows up for whatever anti-Christian connotations, and you see the preacher who shows up.
Yes.
And like
who's what the cousin or the brother of the
cousin of the governor or yeah. It's like what, and so especially as you like what's going on with the task force, because like you hand this off the task force, because that brings up the question, like we said, that we don't want these two guys, Russ and Marty, to be cops because they're messed up. These are really not
right.
Except for, so the answer would have been, okay, well then, hey, this task force for anti-Christian connotation crime shows up, so give it to them. Except for, does anybody really believe that if you give it to them, that anything is actually be done about this crime?
No. Also, there's a bit of a connotation there regarding a Christian influence on society. Preacher full on walks into the precinct, knows everyone, shakes their hands, is related to a governor or a politician. They want to put an anti-Christian task force on this case. They're saying that anti-Christian crime is on a rise in the area, which we never see, at least not yet. So there's also, I think, something being said there as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we talk a lot about the gray in today's storytelling. Oh, give me something gray, yes. or don't, whichever way you like it. Black and white heroes or whatever. Or we talk about George R.R. Martin and gray or Lord of the Rings. We do talk a lot about that.
Yes,
I think this story is one of the best examples of telling a gray story that is going to be out there for the reasons that we've discussed. Okay. I mean, because we're going to have these two characters who I say again, should not have, in an ideal world would never have this kind of authority, but they're dealing with an extremely serious issue of, child sexual assault and abduction and all of this that you would, and they're going to deal with it. We're going to watching them have to deal with this subject, and so for that reason, I think this is one of the best examples of what it means to tell gray heroes. And I think it has fantastic messaging. When done right like this, we've got a lot of things to talk about, and we've got some amazing messaging.
I think I agree with that, right? So generally speaking, it's important to face truth, right? And that's what this, again, at least within the first 3 episodes, I don't know if I have to keep saying that, right? Because I've only seen the first 3, so of course that's what I'm talking about. But within the first 3 episodes, that's really what's being communicated is the importance of facing truth. And I'm going to fall back on 2 of my favorite characters, I think, ever in television, which is Garak and Quark from Deep Space Nine, right? Mm-hmm. So Garak and Quark are the only 2 named merchants in the entire show, and they both do very different things. One is a tailor, one is a bar owner and bartender. And so Quark is a Ferengi and very selfish, and Garak is constantly being selfless. He's constantly trying to do what's best by other people, but Garak is a very bad man. He's done very bad things in his past, and so he's not representative of this virtue of selflessness. He's demonstrating that selflessness can be a danger. And by the same token, Quark, who is very selfish, he's in it for himself, he's in it for the money, is constantly using the rules of acquisition to teach virtuous ideas to anyone who will listen, really. And he's concerning himself with doing the right thing by sort of finding that gray area in the rules of acquisition. And so these 2 characters paired are a demonstration that selfishness and selflessness, as well as bad people and good people, are all needed in order to make the universe or the galaxy or Starfleet work. And I think there is something to, in a story, being confronted with that truth, being confronted with the reality of, you may hold your illusions. You may think that selfishness is always bad. You may think that selflessness is always good, but that's not always the case. And I think that there's value in confronting that. And I think that the same thing is happening here, right? It's confronting us with the truth. Here is the fact of the matter, and there's value in that confrontation.
And here is, when I'm thinking about good, like the good representations in the police. I mean, maybe we don't have any. We have, like I said, the weak police chief. That's kind of different. But I mean, every time we see these cops, none of them, as I'm thinking about it now, exemplify knighthood, or something like that. That is, but
they're all even jerks to each other, right? Like no one likes Cole.
Oh, and they're even jerks to each other, right? I mean, they're all, up in each other's face. I mean, their interactions with each other are, pushing each other or whatever, or insulting each other or whatever. Yeah, they do all of that. And I think it has to do with some kind of messaging about, okay, here we have a job in society where you get to carry a gun around, intimidate people. People will be afraid of you. You can do all of these things. Like, what type of person does that even attract?
Yeah. Where do I sign up? Like,
yeah. If you're a particular type of person who would like that, yeah, exactly. This is exactly the kind of job that you would like, because you're going to get to do. It's almost one of those situations where you're the bad guys and the good guys are the same. They all end up in the same place and they're whatever. It's just that one side ends up with the badge and the other one does. So that and they're both doing the same thing. Or the idea that the only job in the town is the guard at the prison, and so the bad kids end up prisoners and the good kids end up as the guards. They all end up at the prison, at the end of the day, right? It's something like that, and I think later on you also see that like, okay, when they were going to deal with some gangs and all of that, okay, are the gang members all that different from the police that we're seeing? And they're not. Not in
the story anyway.
Not in the story, right? Yeah, we're talking about in the context of the story. I mean, they're not, right? So yeah, I guess because I think it has all this deep messaging and this subtextual elements and the characterization, all of that. I think that's what draws me to this, and why I just binge watch it whenever I'm like, okay, if I turn it on, I end up binge watching it.
I'm glad that you messaged me, and the message, it didn't start off as, hey, do you want to talk about True Detective? It was, hey, I'm watching True Detective. I can't believe you haven't seen this yet. And I was like, I'm going to start right now. I just started watching it. Yeah.
Because I think I turned it on because you had mentioned on the Cultist channel when I did the video about the replicating the flyer for the Cultist, like, oh, I really should see that. And I was like, oh, you hadn't seen that? And I was like, I turned it on, man. I should tell James I'm watching this, and you got to watch this. So
yep.
All right.
Well, now I'm finally doing it. We can talk about it.
Yeah. So, all right. So we'll do it again. We'll do this again and do like the next 3 episodes or something like that when you're
sure thing. I will definitely be caught up by whatever time you want to have the conversation.
So. Okay. All right. Well, is there anything else we need to say? Like, go ahead and give a shout out to your. We did give a shout out to your channel.
Oh, sure. I have a YouTube channel, Better with Bacon. I mostly talk about role playing games, but there's also some discussions about film, and there's some discussions about. I mean, I talk about the philosophy of role playing games, right? A lot of what I talk about is philosophical and different interpretations of. Different roles within the game or archetypes. I mean, I'm in the middle of a video series that talks about role-playing games as a modern type of myth, the GM as a shaman within that framework. And so, my most recent video is, I think I titled it Safety Tools Suck. So, you can kind of get my opinion on those. It's a lot. That title's tongue-in-cheek. I don't think a lot of people realize that. But tomorrow night, I'm going to be having tomorrow afternoon, I'm going to be having a conversation with channel regular Jax to actually discuss safety tools, because Jax does not see things the way that I do. And so there's going to be a disagreement. It'll be civil. It'll be friendly. I've known Jax for like 20 years. And we're good friends. So it's not going to like devolve or break down or anything. It's just going to be a conversation from 2 points of view. And I'd love to have you there. And I'll just shut up about my channel now.
All right. The link I just put into the comments. And then I would say today's Tuesday. So in about 11 days, we're going to be launching the Cultists Kickstarter for the RPG that we've been working on. So
this is exciting. I got that email earlier today, and I was like, "Oh, we're actually launching! Like we're at, here it is. It's imminent.
We are going. Yep, we're a bit behind because I had some trouble advertising. That's what we was talking about. But I hope we were already going. But now it's time to just go. So the link I just put in the comments there takes you to this page where you can sign up. I'll let you know as soon as the campaign goes live. You will also be entered to win $500 worth of Elder Dice. So we will draw the morning the Kickstarter goes live. So that should be like a Wednesday, a week from tomorrow or something like that. Awesome. So that's where this takes you. Please do sign up there. I've got shirts here. I put out a video about the shirts, the Cultist Coffee shirts. There'll be only place to get them will be on the Kickstarter. The Witch's Brew shirt, All Hail the Black Goat of the Woods with 1,000 Young, the Thank You Mama Shub shirt, and then also, here we go. You Can't Summon Cthulhu with Sour Cream and Onion. That shirt will also be available on the Kickstarter.
True.
So
I'm
that's going
buying
on.
One and wearing it at the toy shop so that when people ask me questions about it, I can send them straight on through to the web series.
Thank you. Thank you.
Oh yeah.
And then tomorrow, I've been working on putting the RPG book into InDesign. I'm not quite ready to talk. We got some other things to talk about with regard to the RPG, but we'll talk about Rabavania and Witches and the OSE tomorrow on Heath's Geekverse channel. And then tomorrow night on the Cultist channel, Brianna's next director's commentary will be out. And then my plan is to run a live stream to watch all of season 1 while I paint our Cultist miniatures. I realized I need to paint our miniatures. Here's like Shay right here in miniature. So she's got to be painted. All of them have got to be painted up.
That'll be fun.
Forgot that I didn't have them ready and I need to take some pictures of them. So tomorrow night I'll be painting and I'll be watching the Cultists. Okay. Well, thank you everybody for being here. We will continue this discussion in, I don't know when, but we'll talk about it soon and Bacon will watch some more. I'll probably watch it again.
Thank you all. I'm definitely going to watch some more.
I look forward to seeing you all tomorrow morning on Heath's Geekverse and then tomorrow evening on the Cultist channel. So good night, everybody.
Good night, everyone. Like and subscribe.